Welcome to the No Sugarcoating Podcast. I am Amber Romaniuk, emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert. I am also the founder of amberapproved.ca. I support professional women achieve optimal health through mindful eating, self-care, and overcoming self-sabotage with food. This podcast provides the honest truth on what you really need to create body freedom. The No Sugarcoating Podcast provides information on healthy living, lifestyle changes, nutrition, and diet, and is intended for informational purposes only. Always seek the advice of your healthcare practitioner regarding your health and nutrition program. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the No Sugarcoating Podcast, episode 309. I'm so glad you're here. Happy Canadian Thanksgiving to all my Canadian friends across Canada. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. I am so excited about this week's episode. It's going to be freaking juicy. Let me just tell you that. This is so many people I coach, so many women struggle with these things, but then shift them. So many women I talk to and know. And I've been itching to record this podcast because it's so big. And so today I'm really going to be helping connect the dots between unworthiness, multitasking, and stress eating, tying worth to our actions and detaching worth from the external, because we're so programmed. It's about perfection and overachieving and people pleasing and overgiving, and that it's bad to take care of yourself and make yourself a priority when that's all backwards. So I'm really excited to dive into that right away. I just want to go through a couple of announcements and then we will dive into today's topic. So today's show notes for the episode can be found at amberapproved.ca /podcast/309. Be sure, we had a social media outage this week. As a mindful backup, make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter. You just go to amberapproved.ca and just leave your first, last name and email, or your first name and email. If we ever lost Facebook, Instagram, any of these platforms, or the podcast, at least you can go to amberapproved.ca and you can subscribe to my newsletter and we can stay connected to this in that way. That may never happen, but when we had that outage earlier in the week, it was just a good piece of proof to make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter. So make sure you do that. And then make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app. The link is in the show notes to do that. And so I have two fabulous offers for you. I've been talking about Body Freedom Unleashed, and we are still in the early bird, the $555 early bird, which is about 700 Canadian, for the 6-month Body Freedom Unleashed program, which starts November 10th. And if you're looking for a powerful support in a group setting to navigate emotional eating, holidays, and food, digestion, hormone health, mindfulness, ego, all these things that I'm talking about in the podcast, you also get a private coaching session. And in the VIP, you get one session per month over the 6 months. So if you're wanting to come in and invest in that, take advantage of the early bird savings. You can use code UNLEASHED, all caps, to save that $555 until October 27th. And then the early bird goes away and it'll be the regular price. So please be sure to take advantage of that. If you have any questions about Body Freedom Unleashed, there's a lot of information on the page that you'll click to sign up. But I'm happy to book a 15-minute call if you want to connect and go over any questions that you have if you're ready to make that investment. It's $2,222 is the pay in full price, and the VIP is $3,555. And then there's a monthly payment plan option as well. So the $555 would be subtracted from the prices I just mentioned. The other offer, we've been having so much fun in Food Prep Magic. So much fun. We're already over 3 weeks in, and I've gotten some good feedback that people would love a holiday edition of Food Prep Magic. So Food Prep Magic Holidays is coming and starts Sunday, October 31st. And we'll be going for 3 Sundays, the 31st and then November 7th and 14th. And then we're going to be doing a 90-minute mindful eating through the holidays session as well. So what is Food Prep Magic Holidays? Well, we're bringing joy, cheer, and plenty of new food ideas to your holiday season this year. Whether you're struggling with food sensitivities, you don't know what ingredients to substitute to make your favorite gingerbread cookies, or you're concerned about overindulgence, maybe you need to tweak some of the ingredients that won't spike your blood sugar and won't fuel your cravings. This is what Food Prep Magic Holidays is all about. So you get 3 90-minute live food prep sessions on the Sundays. You get recipes and grocery lists and worksheets to make your prep easy. We will be doing the 90-minute live call on navigating the holidays and mindful eating, and I'll go through any questions and provide coaching and support to help you have a more mindful season with food and your body this year. And you also get a bonus, which is a mindful merry eating practice, where I'm going to go more in depth about how to navigate food in the holidays and family and all the little things that may come along with that. You get lifetime access to the program, and you do get access to the private Facebook group. So week 1 is all about adding holiday flavors into your meals and snacks. Week 2 is savory holiday recipes, and week 3 is holiday baking and food sensitivities. So I'm super, super excited about that. It's going to be so much fun. So if you want to come and join us for Food Prep Magic Holidays, you can click the link in the show notes, and you can use code NOURISH, all caps, to save $100 off until October 25th. So if you want to save and join us, please go ahead and use that code. If you have any questions about the program, you are welcome to email me or DM me on Instagram. But these are my 2 offers, and I'm giving a savings off of both. So I hope to see you in one or both of the programs. So let's dive into today's topic: unworthiness, multitasking, and stress eating. Amber Approved offers private coaching for ambitious women to help with hormone imbalances, weight loss, digestive issues, emotional eating, and more. If you are ready to dive deep into the root issues of what is causing your challenges, contact info@amberapproved.ca to inquire about how we can work together. Or you can go to amberapproved.ca and click Apply to Work Together and book your 30-minute body freedom session. I look forward to supporting you to food and body freedom. So grab a journal or a piece of paper. If you're not able to write right now, come back to this later, because there's some great questions, journal prompts, things to reflect upon that are going to really help open up your awareness. So even this first question you could journal about, and maybe you already know the answer, but do you find that you have tied your worth up with how much you do? The actions you're taking, how much you're saying yes to others, how much is booked into your schedule, working through your lunch breaks, right? Like working those extra overtime hours, volunteering for everything. Your schedule's just booked up. Is your worth tied up in that? And if yes, it's okay, because that's where a lot of, the women that come to me are when we first start working together, because they've tied their worth to how much they do. But at the same time, the irony of this is that you're always taking action. You're always doing so much. It's overwhelming you. It's exhausting you to the point where for a lot of people, the overwhelm and overbooking becomes an emotional eating trigger. It causes stress eating. There's a desire to numb, escape, or distract using food or other self-sabotaging behaviors, because you're so overwhelmed and stressed out and you don't feel good in your body, and you feel like it's the fastest outlet to distract and numb. But then you get frustrated because you went to food again. You don't want to deal with what's really going on because you're afraid to face your ego, face your unworthiness, face your emotions, your fears, your hurt, whatever is going on. Or your ego keeps telling you, your ego is that negative self-sabotaging voice in the head, that you don't have time to deal with it because you're too busy and you have too much in your schedule. But the irony of all that is it keeps fueling the cycle that you can't seem to get out of, no matter how much you diet, no matter how many supplements you take, no matter how good you intend to have your self-care routine, no matter how good you're eating. If you don't address the worth tied to how much you do part, not a lot changes long-term. And this is tied to having your worth attached to how much you do, how much you give to others, how much you say yes to others, how much validation you seek and need, notice need, from others for doing things for them. So when we feel unworthy, we, instead of building worth within and having balance, we, from insecurity, fear, worry, fear of judgment, fear of what others will think if we say no's, we just keep saying yes and offering ourselves up and overgiving and people pleasing, because we now attach our worth in their hands and put our worth in their hands. And when we do that, we need validation from others to feel good enough, because we've set up this external unhealthy attachment. Yet it doesn't matter how much you give to others and how much you people please and how much you say yes to them. It doesn't fill the void, because nothing external will fill your internal void. And how can you possibly be fully happy if you're bloated and your hormones are out of whack and you're tired and your cycle's off and you're gaining weight and you have cravings, you're emotionally eating, you're inflamed because you're overgiving and you're not taking time for yourself. It's great to do nice things for others. I'm all for that. It's great to fulfill things that make you happy outside of yourself. I'm all for that, but not at the extreme expense of having a misalignment or no balance in your schedule, because it's not worth the expense being your health and well-being, your mental health, physical health, emotional health, your energetic health, right? That's big. And it's actually interesting, as an aside, I was chatting with a beautiful woman today about coaching, and something that I don't always talk a lot about, but I'm going to talk a lot more about it now. And if it's resonant for you, amazing. If it's not, that's fine. But women always ask me when I'm exploring private coaching with them, do you integrate things like energy clearing? Do you cord cutting? Do you do work with more energy-based things? And the answer is 100%. If that's something you desire and you're wanting to learn more about it, this work naturally leads us to a deeper connection with our intuition and a deeper intuition with our soul. And so I'm always happy to go into that. If that's not something you feel comfortable with, or that doesn't feel resonant, I don't go into that with people. I really feel out the person and lead them on the path that feels most aligned for them, and do what you feel open to. So I just wanted to mention that, because it's actually very much tied to these things that I'm talking about today. So the thing is if you're so busy giving to others that it's triggering you to constantly being emotionally eating, you don't have time to do food prep, you don't have time for self-care, you're exhausted, you're brain fogged, you're inflamed, you're gaining weight, you're unhappy with your body, but you fear saying no, this episode, this podcast is for you, and share it with your friends if you feel it could be resonant, or your family members. So where does this come from? Where the heck do we inherit all this from? Because it's a lot. It feels like a lot of baggage. It feels like a really heavy couch that you're just dragging everywhere. And it's such a deep limiting belief when our worth is tied up into how much I do versus just a feeling I am worthy. I can sit on my couch and do absolutely nothing and feel just as worthy as I do when I'm up here coaching my clients in my office or recording my podcast. I feel just as worthy because my worth is no longer tied up in how much I do. It used to be when I struggled with emotional eating, and it was also very much tied into how I looked. And now I'm I'm worthy no matter what, whether my hair is all messed up from sleeping or from going in the sauna. And I'm right? Versus being dressed up all to the nines. I am worthy no matter what. It's the feeling that is created by addressing the limiting beliefs, those negative subconscious beliefs, doing your deeper work. You build the feeling of worth. You detach it from the external and you rebuild it within you. It's already there, but we have to rebuild and reconnect it and unprogram the old that no longer serves. But it's this deep limiting belief, and there's a perfectionism tied to it. There's the need to overgive because your false sense of worth is tied into all of it. And we're really taught at a very young age, innocently, by our parents and family members who haven't dealt with their own unworthiness stuff and their own insecurities that they inherited from their parents and their grandparents, that it's bad to put yourself first. It's selfish, and being selfish is bad and rude, and you're stuck up and it's mean, and you should think about others more and stop being so self-centered. They think it's thoughtless and insensitive that you could want to make yourself a priority. And that's such an old school limiting mentality that doesn't serve anyone's mental, physical, or energetic health, because it leaves you with the least amount of time to tend to yourself and your needs. And as I always say, your body is not a robot. Your body is a beautiful vessel that needs your time, your love, and your nurturing. And that looks a bit different for everybody, but we do need to be willing to dedicate time to take care of ourselves. The ego is heavily programmed as we grow up by family, and it's innocent, but by family, limiting beliefs from family, friends, the content we consume, social media, school. We're taught to fill up our schedules. We're taught that being busy means you're somebody, that you're more important. We put all this definition into busyness. And then, you ask people, how are you? Oh, good, busy, you, right? And that becomes the narrative when it's there's so much more that's important. And then we inherit those limiting beliefs. And instead of being taught that we're worthy inwardly, no matter what we do or don't do, we're instead taught to do, go, hustle, take all the action, commit and volunteer and give yourself to the world and offer ourselves everywhere, which leaves us with minimal time for ourselves. And like I said earlier, I'm all for you, like being so passionate about something you give time to, but we need balance, and we've got to stop giving at the expense of our health, because you get this body, you get this life, and we don't want you to getting really sick and going so deep into self-sabotage that you're the one suffering. We don't want that to happen. We want to prevent that. And if it's already happening, we can still shift it and prevent it. But it's so important that we start to look at it. And another piece that ties heavily into this is the body image, how we feel about our bodies, because we are conditioned that we need to look a certain way to be loved. And a lot of the women I talk to, and I know this is men too, but they say if they don't feel like they look good enough in their body and they don't feel good in their body, they overgive to compensate, to get validation in that sense, and like taking action and offering to do extra things for people, over giving to people. So tell me if that resonates for you as a way to compensate, because I don't feel like I look good enough. So I'm going to like overgive and prove myself because my body's not good enough. So I'll prove that I'm capable in other ways, when proving comes from unworthiness. When we truly feel worthy, we have nothing to prove. We truly don't, but it stems from unworthiness and needing other people to like us and approve of us. So if you're in this narrative of, well, I'm unhappy with my weight, I don't want this to interfere with my relationships or with my job or whatever it is that I want, so I'm going to just give more. I'll say yes, even if I don't want to, because it's my way to get validation when I feel insecure in my body. And this is the narrative that starts to form and starts to happen. And it's like, well, at least if I feel like my body's not adequate, I have this skill set that I can keep giving and keep throwing my body under the bus. So we get into these kinds of narratives and patterns and mindsets, but we never fill the internal void. The void just gets bigger, and we feel more lonely, more empty, more unfulfilled, more unhappy, regardless of how much money you're making, how much success you have. If you don't feel well, mentally, physically, emotionally, energetically, like what do you really have? Because at the end of the day, you have to come home and live in your mind and your body and deal with your ego and the suffering and the costs and consequences of not having balance, because you're chasing validation. You're chasing your worth rather than it being within you. You have to face that. And that's why it's great to explore these episodes and have these conversations, because it's great to face it so we can change it, so you can stop the exhaustion and stop the rat race. And we want to fill that void. We want to fill that void, and it takes going inward to do the deeper work. And yes, I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's scary. Have compassion for yourself, but doing it is life-changing and liberating, and you will not regret doing it. I can guarantee you that. So on your condition that if you don't feel you look good enough, that you're doing something wrong and you need to compensate, right? Because people make it wrong if they're not fitting in a box, which doesn't serve you or anyone, but it exhausts you more to keep having to prove and people please and take action and strive for perfection. And the unworthiness and the don't look good enough conditioning is so deep. So we'll continue to find ways to compensate, to get validation, to chase our worth, which honestly just creates a very slippery slope. And then we have to talk about guilt, because that is a huge factor of people pleasing and overgiving and saying yes when you really want to say no. Because if your parents got upset with you or judged you or taught you that you always say yes, and if you say no, if you don't want to do something, shame on you, you should feel guilty. Or if you said no to someone and then you felt guilty, or people like, you can almost sense that they're purposefully trying to make you feel guilty, which is their own ego. The fear of feeling guilty can really come up. And the guilt is a heavy emotion to sit in, and it's uncomfortable. And if you don't want to face the guilt and dissolve it, usually your ego will push you to say yes against your will, because you'd rather appease the other person than deal with the guilt that your ego pushes you into because you said yes to yourself instead of someone else, because your ego's convinced you that it serves your greatest good to say yes instead of work through the guilt, release the guilt, and learn how to stand in your power. And sadly, when we get into these patterns, unfortunately, and have a lack of boundaries, people sometimes take advantage of you because you're giving so much. They keep asking, and then they create expectation and expect a lot in return because you keep giving and you keep giving more and more and more, and people will see how far they can push the envelope. Not everyone does it on purpose, but people do. And then if you were to think to start saying no, you could upset them because now they're going, what the heck? How come you're not helping me? What's wrong? When you're starting to realize, no, I want to take time to take care of myself and I'm overgiving, right? And so then we fear upsetting them and triggering them because we don't want them to be upset. But at the same time, the standard you've set to give that much and not give to yourself is not healthy for either party. But we can break up these old patterns and set healthy boundaries. And the people who are meant to be in your life will honor your boundaries and respect that you want to take better care of yourself and will not get upset with you long term because you say no. If people do that, you got to really question if you want to have them in your life. That's all I got to say about that for now. And this can really happen in your work, your business, with your friends or family, your coworkers, etc. Because like I've been saying, we set the standard. And if the standard is I'm a yes no matter what for fear of upsetting someone, it creates a lot of stress for us. And it's so nice because I had a client last week share with me how much she admired the boundaries that I have in my business and that she aspires to have boundaries like that too, which she's totally creating and going to keep creating. And it's so important to have boundaries. Yes, I love my clients. Yes, I love recording this podcast. And yes, I love myself and value my health and well-being. And in order to show up and do these beautiful things in my business, I want and desire to be really healthy and high vibe to be able to hold space. And so it's so important for me to set my boundaries and honor them, right? Like I will support my clients Monday through Friday and I take the weekends for myself. I complete work at a certain time every day and I don't respond after that. The balance is so important. And I learned how to set boundaries over the years. I've learned how to say no and ask for help. I've learned I'm not a one woman in the world, that there's people to assist me. And it took time to do it. And it took challenging my ego. And by doing so, I'm able to support my clients the way that they desire for me to. I'm able to record the podcast. I'm able to show up in many different ways because I have the energy and the boundaries set. But because unworthiness sets the stage for so many, people keep hanging on to the old patterns, right? I need to make this person happy for myself to feel good. That's called codependence, and that doesn't serve anybody either. So rather than creating and having the knowing that I am worthy, that I deserve balance, that healthy boundaries are healthy and safe, right? We spend all this time, so many years, creating these patterns in our brain, these neural pathways that keep getting stronger, that my worth is in how much I do and how much I give to others. And I can only say yes. I don't have a choice. I can't say no. The more we strengthen those patterns, the more terrified or shut down we feel when we consider changing them, which is also normal because it's your ego and it's uncomfortable and it's out of your comfort zone. However, it's so important to look down that path to help change it. And you may even be getting triggered right now, if it's strong for you, considering changing these patterns. And that's okay. If you're getting triggered, write about it. What's triggering you? Why? And have compassion for yourself. I used to be there. I used to be the freaking hugest people pleaser. I used to say yes to everyone else and no to myself. I used to be so scared of upsetting someone. And if I had to change a plan or said, like, I was terrified of upsetting other people because I was so worried about what others thought of me. And now I'm detached. I treat people with love and respect because treat people how you want to be treated. And at the same time, I'm not going to sit here and worry if you guys are all loving the podcast or not. I'm just going to trust whoever is meant to hear it is going to hear it and leave it at that. What you have to understand, though, is that if you are overbooked, if you're tying your worth to how much action you take, how much you do for others, if you don't keep up with a perfectionist standard, you end up being hard on yourself. You beat yourself up. You think you're not a good enough woman, mom, wife, friend, sister, brother, husband, whatever, business owner. And the slippery slope of being convinced that perfectionism, overachieving, and overgiving is the only way to be happy and feel worthy is false. And it's draining. Because as soon as you don't achieve the perfection, or you can't keep overachieving because you're too tired and you can't give anymore because you're feeling unwell, you have no choice but to take things off your plate. And what kind of quality of life, emotional, physical, energetic, do you have if you're burnt out, if you're brain fogged, if you can't think straight, if you have no energy, if you look at your schedule and you dread it? And then you get so frazzled and overwhelmed because you keep attracting all the same things that you don't want, but you don't get why nothing is changing. And then on top of that, you emotionally eat. And then you get on the scale and you're not happy with what you see. It's a vicious cycle. It's deep. I get it. This is the ego. This is why it's so important to have these conversations to open you up, because we need to be willing, not a need, but ideally I encourage that people work on this to change it. Another justification or tie or reason or story or excuse is I don't have time to do self-care. I don't have time to take a lunch break. I don't have time to do XYZ for myself. I'm too busy. So you multitask while you work. So you multitask. You work while you eat while you drive and run errands. You tell yourself you're doing self-care while you do housework. That's still self-care. But there's this lack of being real and honest with yourself, that you're still not making yourself a priority and fueling patterns and habits that don't serve your health and well-being. There's a denial, though. There's oh, it's okay. Like, this is totally fine. Like, the ego gets really sneaky and we believe it and we think that it's good. Yet there's always time, because let's face it, we've all experienced it at some point. There's always time for mindless scrolling on social media, binge watching hours of TV, self-sabotaging habits that we really don't want to be doing. Yet we focus on that we have a lack of time, when it's our responsibility and our priority and within our power to set healthy boundaries and make changes to open up time for ourselves. If you really want to make the changes, you will figure out a way. There's always a way. The only thing that's usually in the way is your ego. It takes a commitment, a willingness, a spark to want to do the deeper work and to address these patterns and habits. And understanding the ego is one of the biggest pieces. And you always hear me say that because it is so true. And being willing to have the courage to go inward and step out of your comfort zone, one little step at a time, building your worth so you can start detaching from how much you do and how much you give, and that it's fully possible to feel worthy doing nothing while doing something. But how much you do has nothing to do with your worth. It is a feeling that nobody can take away from you. And it's liberating and it's freeing to step into that. And I think it's so important when we're exploring this whole concept and tying worth to action. We need to observe and understand that we tie our worth to action and how much we do and how well we do something. And we create an attachment. And ultimately, we want to detach our worth from action or what other people think of us or the way we look. Yes, it's great to take action that's aligned, to have goals, to commit, to feel good in your body, however, the goal is to be able to feel just as whole and worthy, slowing down to nurture yourself, to do self-care, to eat mindfully without distractions, rest, whatever that is, just as much as if you're taking action with something. And then guess what comes up, people? Judgment. Judgment can come up really strong when you may consider, thinking about saying no, setting boundaries, asking for help, setting aside time for yourself, because you've been wired to behave a certain way for most of your life. You've had certain thoughts and beliefs ingrained into your subconscious. They've been programmed in there, and we're essentially programmed to do the opposite. Because of that, because of society values, because of programs you've watched, school, etc. So here's another one, right? Lots of options this week. So when you're thinking about spending a half an hour dedicating time for self-care to take care of yourself tonight, what comes up? How do you feel thinking about this? Do you feel anxiety, fear, judgment? Do you feel like you're going to shut down, starting to call yourself lazy? You're not going to get everything done? Does it stress you out? Do you feel contracted all of a sudden, uncomfortable? Or do you get excited? Do you feel a weight lifted off your shoulders? Do you feel peace and excitement thinking about taking time for yourself? How do you feel though? Because this is where we need to start, is this awareness of how I feel, starting to shift this. Because if you're already shutting down, that's your ego, and that's okay, but it could block you. Becoming aware of how it would feel to start making yourself a priority to unravel these patterns is a very powerful first step to take. It's all about awareness. I can't stress that enough. And recognizing the emotions and how it feels in your body. This is how you start to become in tune. And as usual, the ego is going to have a million reasons, stories, excuses, why it's not a good idea, why you'll never do it. Your ego wants you to think that nothing will change. And it also does this because the ego knows the more you step into your power and make yourself a priority, the less power your ego has, and your ego doesn't want that. The ego thrives off of your suffering and wants to stay in control, when your true natural essence is for you to be in your power and be happy and be love and have balance and say no when you want to. We all have this power within us, and making ourselves a priority and shifting our limiting beliefs and habits helps you step into this power and maintain it more over time. So when your ego is saying you have to make the perfect meal every night for your family so you don't have time for self-care and you're not good enough because it has to be perfect, or you keep working 16-hour days and overtime and you're skipping your breaks and emotionally eating because you just don't have a choice and you need to prove yourself, right? This all leads from unworthiness and old programming and negative beliefs. And it's honestly honestly time to shift that. It is so time to shift that. It's not working for humanity anymore. It doesn't work for any of you. You get to just decide what kind of path you want to take to change it. So we want to start detaching from the external. So notice what's triggered within you when you start thinking about working on your ego, when you think about considering detaching your worth being external and that it's internal. You know, what are the reasons, stories, and excuses that come up around not doing anything about this, around having more balance in your schedule? And where does it leave you if you decide to do nothing about it? What does it cost you physically with your health? More bloating, more brain fog, more cravings, more emotional eating, more sadness, more anger, lower moods, more conflict. How much money does it cost you to stay with your ego leading the way? Money for more supplements, more testing, more medication, seeing more practitioners, but nothing is working because I'm not addressing the root issues, right? What does it cost you with your self-worth because you're unhappy with the number on the scale? Yet you're continuing to only diet, but the dieting is not going to shift these deep-rooted beliefs and patterns. So what we want to start to do is we want to start blocking time off in our schedules for a lunch break, for self-care. We want to start practicing saying no when we really want to say no and not say yes. We want to practice asking for help where we want help. And if that all feels scary and you're like, I can't do that, I would highly encourage you to reach out for private coaching or for Body Freedom Unleashed, because the ego is heavily addressed in private coaching and also will be in Body Freedom Unleashed. We've got to work on the mindset. We've got to be willing to make these changes on a very deep root level. But that's why the success happens, because you change it on a very deep level. Start to go inside. That's why self-care is so important. You go inside and you start affirming, I am worthy. I am worthy for my health. I'm worthy to be happy. I'm worthy to have balance. It's safe for me to put myself first. And your ego is going to get really triggered and you're going to shut down and go, but I don't feel that. It takes time to feel it and embody it. And it's the starting to change the schedule and set the boundaries that will help you get there. But we've got to be willing to shift that and to change that. So I highly encourage you to consider what is one step that you can take this week from this episode, whether it's the journal prompts, whether it's practicing saying no once between now and next Sunday, whether it's asking for help, setting a boundary, or blocking off your lunch break. Pick something. And if you're like, oh, this is the episode that I really needed to hear to book a 30-minute Body Freedom call, book a 30-minute Body Freedom call. Let's explore private coaching. Sign up for Body Freedom Unleashed. These are programs that are so powerful and are going to help you address this on such a deep level. And sometimes we need that support, someone who really has a deep level of awareness to help us understand the ego, challenge our beliefs and patterns. But what are you going to do this week to shift this a little bit? If you want to email me at info@amberapproved.ca and share with me what you're going to shift, please do. I love reading. DM me on Instagram. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I've thoroughly enjoyed diving deep into this with you. This is so important. The show notes can be found at amberapproved.ca /podcast/309. If you have questions about Body Freedom Unleashed, Food Prep Magic, holidays, or anything else, you can email me at info@amberapproved.ca. Be sure to go to amberapproved.ca where you can take the free emotional eating quiz, learn more about Body Freedom, book your 30-minute Body Freedom session, and also on the programs, online programs page, all the programs are there for you to dive into. So I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, a great week. As I always say, there's no better time than the present to take action on your health, making yourself a priority and starting to shift your ego. So take action now. And I'm sending you all so much love and so much light, and I will have a whole new episode for you guys next Sunday. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe, review, and rate this podcast and share it with your friends. You can find me at amberapproved.ca and follow me on Instagram and YouTube at Amber Romaniuk. Join me next Sunday for another brand new episode and another step toward body freedom.